Welcome to the first episode of the Big Reveal podcast series, and welcome Bill Krager, the CEO of Envestnet. Bill, it is so wonderful to virtually see you.
Yeah, I missed you. Good to see you.
I miss you too. Thank you so much for partnering with me on my new podcast series. And to get us started, I thought it would be fun to actually talk about how this podcast series came to be, the backstory, so to speak.
Yep.
So first off, Bill, you and I have known each other for 15 plus years, not to date either one of us. Do you remember how we first met by any chance?
That's a good question, Suzanne. If my memory serves right, and it's been 15 years, so test me. We had lunch. You called me. You said you had a couple of issues with the way we were communicating who Envestnet was in the market. You wanted to talk to me. We had lunch in the Bryant Park restaurant there, the Bryant Park Cafe, if I'm right. Is that correct?
I think you have a great memory. Yes, we actually had a fantastic lunch, and I knew we were going to be friends, fast friends, because I had to deliver some difficult information where I basically said to you, quite honestly, I don't understand what your firm does through your advertising messaging. That was a long time ago, but we kind of bonded over that and have been friends ever since. And so I'm grateful for that. And about April of 2019, I confided in you, Bill, if you remember, about that I was going to be leaving Investment News, I was going to be starting my own firm, and that I had an idea that I wanted to talk with you about, a partnership idea. And that idea is the Big Reveal podcast series. So I always appreciated the fact that you never said anything about it. You kept my confidence. And we ended up having our meeting after I left in September. And actually, Judd was supposed to be in on that meeting as well. We decided to go to lunch in New York City at a wonderful Italian restaurant. You remember?
I do.
Maialino.
Maialino, absolutely.
Yeah, so if anyone out there is listening, is looking for a great Italian restaurant with like the best cacio e pepe in the world, that's the place to go. But you and I had a wonderful conversation there. We talked about the concept of the big reveal, and you were on board. Judd was on board. We couldn't wait to get started. And then 2 weeks later, the unthinkable happens, where Judd, the CEO of Envestnet, your partner, your friend, was tragically killed in a car accident. And not only did you have to deal with the shock of that and the sadness of losing a personal friend, but you also had to console your Envestnet team, and you had to assure the shareholders, as you have a public company, that things were under control, that things were going to be okay. And you immediately assumed the role as interim CEO. What I'd love to know from you is, what were the biggest lessons that you learned during that time period? A lot of times you learn the most during periods of adversity.
Yeah. Well, it was understandably incredibly shocking period of time. I don't know if they've all settled in yet, Suzanne. We're coming up on a year's anniversary now, from October 3rd. And, this year has been extraordinary in really incredible ways. Some of them, shocking, but some of them so rewarding in the way that people respond and the resiliency of people. I go back to this year, and I guess the deepest lesson that I take away from it is that at the end of the day, despite all the technology and all the kind of fast-moving things in our lives today, and the ease of being able to do anything, reach into your pocket and get anything in the world, people matter the most. And it's the resiliency and adaptability of people that is just so extraordinary. And so I never I never took that for granted prior to October 3rd last year, but I have completely validated my belief in people during this year. And so I think what I would take away from that is, the deepest trait, the best traits that humans have lie deep within us, and those are of grit, that word, resiliency, the ability to stand up through a lot of adversity in difficult times. And look at the difficult times that have occurred since then for all of us. So just when I go back and I think about those days, just this amazing resiliency of the people that are part of the InvestNet family, and just helped us move forward.
What a great thing to take away. Again, all of the things that have happened in the last year, and yes, it's almost a year anniversary since Judd's passing. It's unbelievable to think that that's been a year already, and everything that has happened ever since. But your summary of that is just the resiliency of the people and how important that is, right? Because you can have the best offerings, the best products in the world, but if you don't have the people supporting it and talking about it and working together like a team, it becomes a moot point. So that's a great lesson to learn for everyone listening out there, to always remember that it's the people that really, really matter.
Yeah, and let's go back to the lunch. Our lunches have been pretty profound. 15 years ago, our lunch, and then in September, that lunch at Mayalino, we talked about a lot of things, but one of the things we talked about was this podcast, and I'm so thrilled that I'm the first conversation you're having in part of this. It's really an honor.
It's great. I'm so excited, and I didn't want another partner. I really wanted to wait until you guys were ready for lots of reasons, but finding the right partner on a venture like this is really critical. And again, just take away for the people listening, right? When you're looking to do any kind of strategic partner, understanding the leadership, the vision, the culture, the innovation, the entrepreneurism, all of those things matter and actually represent like the most positive outcome that you can get or want to get. So I'm just thrilled for you to be here. Speaking of our listeners, right, there are many independent advisors that hopefully are listening to this podcast, as well as those that are listening that have a true entrepreneurial spirit. And in that vein, while InvestNet is now a global multi-million-dollar business, you actually started this business 20 years ago, so happy anniversary, in a Soho loft on a card table, which I want to see that visual. What are some of the traits that really allowed your and Judd's vision to be created? And what are some tips for others who have a similar type of dream?
Suzanne, that's a great question. I've spent so much time because of what happened in the last year, and then we have this 20-year anniversary this year, thinking back to those days. And there was a couple of card tables in Chicago, and then I moved mine to New York and into the Soho loft. And to believe it or not, we had a vision that we could truly disrupt things. That somehow the way advice was being offered to American households could be changed. We did that with not a lot of money, with a bunch of stuff scratched out on some napkins and pieces of paper. And of course, any good story starts in a bar, and we drew our first picture of InvestNet on a napkin in a bar. But that evolved into, a small group of people. And the remarkable thing is that today, we serve over $3.5 trillion in assets. And when I say that very humbly, over 100,000 financial advisors. We did all of that using a dial-up plugged into a wall. And sometimes it didn't connect. And so I go back to that word resiliency and determination and belief in your idea. An idea is it's not enough. An idea, we all have them. How many times during your week will you hear, "Oh, I've got a great idea. You should do that. You're going to make millions of dollars." Well, you've got to take the idea. You've got to evangelize that idea with a group of people, convince them that it's a great idea. You've got to get capital, and then you got to begin to build. And you've got to build through periods of such headwinds and darkness and disbelief across so many different people, and circumstances will surround you each step of the way. But it comes down to that same word that I used earlier, and that's resilience and grit and determination. Because if the belief is in you, you can't be afraid of all of the other things that are going to swirl around you, and discourage you, and worse than discourage you, try to defeat you.
Yeah.
That happened every day for years for us, and the partnership between Judd and I. So one of us would have a good day, one of us would have a bad day, right? But we kind of pushed each other along, and this group of people, a really extraordinary small group of people that were part of that as well, we just kept going forward. And slowly but surely, we began to build, and we began to get successful, and people began to recognize it, and we began to grow. Blink your eyes, 20 years later, we're practically $1 billion revenue company, and we serve $3.5 trillion in assets. And we've really, I think, helped reshape the way advice is being offered. It's a platform now that people can rely on. That has shown up during COVID. People scurried to their homes and to their remote places, and guess what? They could log on and they could serve their clients, given the way the platform's been engineered. So it's been remarkable. But I go back to that same word, and it's resilience and grit are kind of the determining factor in so many outcomes. And don't undervalue it. Look to find it, recognize it in others, nurture it, and then in the test, when you're going to be tested, it will absolutely display itself.
Gosh, that's great advice. I really can identify with what you're saying, as I was part of the launch team at Investment News, and we entered a very competitive field, and just never gave up. And I think determination, grit, also passion, right?
Yeah.
For love and real belief for what you're doing is going to change an industry. And that underlying factor, like that you've brought out with InvestNet, is really, like, I think kind of can be the determining factor between success and not making it. So
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, Suzanne. Yeah, that's key.
I think that's some great advice for everyone out there. So if you kind of are just lukewarm on your concept or your idea, if you're not willing to put in the work, if you don't believe it to the core, probably not going to work.
You have to be all in. You have to be all in. And at the end of the day, lots of people come at things for lots of different motivations. A financial outcome was never one of those. It's like a belief and passion that you can change things and you can build. Building things is really exciting. Having an impact, changing the way things are done, making them better. All those things are super motivating. And inside that, you're going to be tested, and what you got to lean back on is, hey, am I tough enough to do this or not? And so.
Yeah, Greg Friedman, who's a financial advisor, CEO of Private Ocean, said that to me. He's like, never take a job just for the money. Never do something just for the money. Like, it's got to be more than that. And that's always stayed with me. And it sounds like you felt the same way, you and Judd. So that's great advice. So you've now been the official CEO for the past 6 months. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Was it incredibly stressful being the interim CEO for many, many months? And was there ever a time that you thought, well, maybe I just shouldn't be the CEO? Like, what was that process like for you?
Yeah, we went through something pretty dramatic and certainly not something we expected. We had the emergency succession plan. All the governance of the company worked the way it should. This all happened, Suzanne, within literally moments of learning about the tragic news. So in that period of time, it wasn't just a question around who the CEO is going to be. It became a question of, governance of the company, chairman of the board, different committees, how we were going to operate, look at the talent bench within InvestNet. How we're going to organize ourselves going forward. So there was a lot of work that went into that. The stress during that period of time was less an uncertainty and more hey, we can't stop. We got to keep pushing the company forward. Never for a day did I think that InvestNet wasn't going to be a continuing part of my story, nor did I not want to be a very important part of this story. It is, when you do something like this, it becomes becomes a lot of your being. It becomes, more people know me because of InvestNet than they know Bill Krager. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but at the end of the day, it really becomes a component of who you are. And I've explained it. Early days, I explained InvestNet as my extreme sport. Lots of people do crazy things, and this maybe was my version of that. But then over the years, I feel more like it's part of my family. It's just part of the family, and something that I care. I care about this as much as I do pretty much anything. So that was never a question. It was really, okay, how is InvestNet going to emerge from this? How are we going to make sure we're pointed in the right direction? How are we going to be properly led and properly organized?
Yeah, no, that's great. And I know a little bit about being identified with your work and your industry. And, what this podcast series I hope will do is allow people to know a little bit more about the people themselves that I'm interviewing, in addition to the great business advice that they give. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. And, when you're looking at it from afar and you're saying, what's taking so long? How come he's not the CEO yet? But to your point, there are so many operational and internal things, the board, et cetera, that needed to get figured out. So thanks for sharing that. So in that same theme, what has been the biggest change for you, right? So you were always in a leadership position, you were a co-founder. Now you're the top person, right? You're the CEO. Has there been a significant change in just taking over that role versus where you were before that?
Yep. And, during all this, I've had a lot of support. The board, the InvestNet board of directors have been tremendously supportive, and really, we've navigated this together. So I've spent a lot more time with them, and I hadn't really done that. I mean, I'm familiar and friendly with all the board members and met them every quarter. But
yeah, you weren't on the board, right?
No, I was named to the board just 6 months ago, right?
Okay.
But played a major role in how we kind of brought the board updates and things together. But so the board has been tremendous, and I guess I'm recognizing the massive role that Judd had all those years. Whether it is the engagement with the board, the engagement with investors on strategy, thinking through the longer term, who are we going to be? And really just having such admiration and respect for what Judd did for all those years, the lessons I learned and the ability to step into that role. I feel very good about it and feel very, very well prepared for it. But geez, I learned a lot about it in the 20 preceding years from what Judd did. And as you step into the role, there is this responsibility that comes with it. I lost a partner, and whether it was Judd or Bill that disappeared, there was that partnership that no longer existed. So in good days and bad days, you'd lean on each other. That's gone, and so to step into the role without that degree of partnership has been, a feeling of deep responsibility and thoughtfulness about, all the things that we're doing. Stuart DePina has stepped up to be, promoted to be the president of the company. And we've had a long, very, very successful partnership as well, and developing into that kind of leaning on each other as we grow the company. But the thing I would say that the difference between the job I had as president and co-founder very operational, very kind of engaged, in everything that happened across the business. Still am very much, but also thinking about the bigger environment that Envestnet operates in, at the board, with investors, in the marketplace, in Washington, thinking further down the road and how we're developing our company and the impact we'll have.
Yeah, no, that's great insight, and also trusting more members and new members that you're bringing in on your team to execute on some of those operational functions that maybe you were more tied to. So really making that switch or that pivot, and finding the right people to do that. Again, that's critical part of the growth of the business, right?
Yep.
So switching gears on just the industry right now. So there continues to be quite a bit of M&A activity happening in our industry. And a great example of one of those deals is the Orion Brinker merger that happened a few months ago. And Orion seems to be following a similar path as Envestnet, with bundled offerings and bundled solutions for advisors and enterprises. So were you surprised at all about the deal? Like, did you see it coming? Is more competition actually better for both of your companies and for advisors as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, so Eric and Noreen are two people I'm very close with and have enormous respect for. So the combination of them is tremendous. Both of them I think the world of, and it is also a validation. It's two validations. One is of the space and the services that can be provided to advisors to better enable them, to supply them, to support them as they're engaged in providing advice to their clients. That's the job we all do. That's what our audience does. And how essential a role is that when you step back and think about it. Our advisors that we're working with across the industry are helping American households achieve some aspiration, some goal, find financial security, evolve to financial wellness. That's a big, big job. Right. We're all in on it and have been for 20 years. But what that merger does is also recognize how the pieces need to be brought together to do it. Envestnet's there. We have the technology assets. We have the data assets. We also are the largest turnkey asset management platform in this space.
By far.
Yeah. So it's something that we're there. So the second validation is hey, Envestnet's business model makes sense, right? So to invest those types of dollars, to bring those firms together, I think is a validation of what we've built here, and we've paved a bit of a path. And I fully expect that firms seeing this opportunity that we saw, and the growth of our great partners, the advisors, that there is an opportunity to also serve that marketplace. So competition is part of our story. It's always been part of our story. It will continue to increase. It will continue to intensify. I think that's great for our industry. I think our industry needs to continue to be pushed along, because the American household, I'm speaking to advisors, needs to be served differently in the years ahead. Absolutely. It's not just an investment portfolio, right? It's okay, how do I balance my daily financial life, the ways that I'm spending money, the ways that I'm earning money, and how does that connect to retirement? Those two pieces do not speak to each other very well. What advisors need to do is help them kind of begin to fuse together so that the impact of the decisions you make Monday through Friday have an outcome that lives in 2025. How again do those pieces come together? And it's not just an investment portfolio. It is a financial plan. It's an investment portfolio. It's how do I protect? How do I grow through, how do I manage a debt portfolio? How do I balance this relationship between healthcare and finances in the long term? All those questions are hard questions. Our advisors, this audience, is going to answer them. So competition is going to push a firm like Envestnet, push a firm like Orion and Brinker, and others to solve and bring the solution. So that's what competition does, and I think it's good for us. Happy for Eric and Noreen. They're going to do great. Envestnet, We're very focused on that integrated, holistic advice, delivering that through a cloud-based environment so advisors can offer advice anywhere to their clients anywhere and do that in a much more broad, comprehensive way.
Yeah, no, you're so on trend, ahead of trend, right? You're ahead of your time. And I love the philosophy that you have is like competition is good. It makes you better. I
Absolutely.
100% believe that. So just to like go back, did you think that was going to happen? Did that make sense for you? Like, was that shocking to you, or you were like, okay, we figured something like that would happen?
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of see how the space is going to evolve, so that does make sense.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in a place where the Brinker offices are a couple hundred yards from us, so
I know,
yeah,
ironically.
yeah, ironically, but you kind of understand how consolidation will occur and which combinations make sense. That one makes sense to me. It
Yeah.
absolutely makes sense. There are other things that will happen over the next 2 years or so, and everyone will say, oh. It's a big deal. Well, no, you can kind of see and understand how those things are going to evolve over time. We're head down. We're very focused on completing that ecosystem, bringing data together with the software, the technology, crowned by this financial planning vision that we have, and then connecting it to a broad range of solutions. Today, that's investments, insurance, and credit. There are other things that we'll announce in the next couple of months that are pretty exciting there.
Ooh, well, can't wait to hear what those are. And
Yep.
also too, you guys really have that data piece that a lot of people don't have with
Mm-hmm.
Yodlee,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That's like
Yep.
one of your unique. So how do all of these M&A deals affect advisors, right? Like you alluded to the fact that it's good, like competition is good, but what does this all mean for advisors? A lot of the industry news covers all of these deals. What is the benefit to advisors with all of these mergers happening?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, as you're reading the headlines, is okay. How do these pieces come together to help me provide better advice? So,
Right.
it's a puzzle. Now, I don't think advisors fully appreciate the value of data yet, right? But you will. I trust me as it evolves here, you're going to understand some really powerful capabilities that evolve from that. But data is like a gasoline, a fuel that gets pumped into a software. And the software, the more the software can do, the more scale the advisor, is going to have in your business. It's going to be easier to deploy. The pieces connect to each other. Everything communicates better. And then how is that software then connected back to solutions? So it's really in the connectivity of how the pieces come together. I think does it fill a need in the ways that you're providing advice to your clients? Is it easier to access, cheaper because it's now
Yeah.
part of a bigger family? Is it more operationally centered so I don't have to call 10 to 800 numbers? I can just get the answer once. Those are the questions I'd be asking if I was an advisor.
Yeah, those are great. Those are great points, and I think that's a good way to also segue into what are some of the strategic ways that advisors can utilize technology to deliver better advice to their clients. So, especially since the global pandemic, people seem to need advice now more than ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
what are some of the effective strategies that advisors can use to help best serve their clients and grow their business at the same time when there's very little personal interaction?
Right.
How are you guys? What are you guys seeing at InvestNet?
So we've seen advisors really behave in an extraordinarily beneficial way during this period of time versus the crisis of 2008 and 9. During the March time period, what we saw is that advisors began to rebalance risk away from their clients. And then as the market began to pick up steam in April, rebalance back into risk. So the performance, if you will, differentiation between 2008 and 9 and 2020 is extraordinary. And it's because advisors are better experienced or had the experience, but it also I believe it's because you had some technology at your fingertips that made it easier to execute on. You didn't have to call each of your clients. You didn't have to, you could do it with a couple of clicks of the mouse, and you could really execute and help your clients through a difficult period of time. That's one. So I think in the future, a technology, not to be a self-promoter, but a technology like InvestNet or a platform like InvestNet is absolutely not necessary. It's essential. It becomes essential. The second thing is, this is like, it's been an incredibly difficult period of time with so many uncertainties. You have a health uncertainty, at a financial, you have financial uncertainty, and we're going into the teeth of a political uncertainty. There is anxiety, tremendous anxiety that resides in each and every household. Most of them are not prepared for this. And then who do you call for help? Like, what should I do? To me, that's the most vulnerable question, right? What should I do? Who do you call? That has to be you, the financial advisor. And it will be you, the financial advisor, if you've engaged with that family around a financial plan. And that financial plan is simply a roadmap. And the family, the individuals that are worried about these things are going to say, okay, am I on the roadmap, or have I veered off because this is tremendously bad? We've lost jobs, we've lost income, we've lost net worth. But it's easier to answer those questions if you have a plan in place. So financial planning takes center stage, just period. That's end of story. Financial planning has to become the center of practices. And then the next thing, I think, Suzanne, that is so important in this period ahead, and we see that the fintechs are, and it's a different demographic, it's a much younger demographic, but lots of accounts are being opened, and people are beginning to deal with their finances in a completely digital way. That's fine for a period of time, but it's not fine forever, because something is going to happen. Something happens in everybody's life. You lose a parent, you get married, you buy something, you start a business, you sell a business, you lose a spouse, you want to prepare for the next generation. All those things happen across the course of a life. You need somebody to help you do those things. So the advisor becomes, this combination of advice and technology, and human plus technology becomes the business proposition in the years going forward. That has been validated, and it will absolutely be fortified in the years ahead. So advisors need to build out their digital presence. When you get home at 11 o'clock, you're sitting on the couch, I'm not going to call my advisor, I'm going to log on. And I want to be able to reach into my finances just as I can reach into my Amazon account. And to do that, your digital presence, your digital storefront needs to evolve dramatically. InvestNet's building that. We're powering that. I'm excited about how all the pieces of a family's financial life can come together at the click of a mouse. And then guess what? Through a couple of clicks of the mouse, I can connect with that human being, my advisor, and get real answers, emotional experience, just relatable answers to the question, what should I do?
Yeah, no, those are great points. And I couldn't agree more that intersection of human and technology is the future, and financial planning versus an investment management. We've talked about it for years, the future. So thanks for those great points. So I want to talk a little bit about the incoming shortage of talent in the financial advice business. And in my opinion, there's been a lot of talk, not a lot of action, but InvestNet actually did something about it and created the InvestNet Institute on campus, which is a program that helps new students, they learn and train them about the basic 101, wealth management 101, so to speak, in order to better position them for employment within our industry. And I believe it just turned 5 years old. So can you discuss why InvestNet invested in this and what you hope to achieve? And quite frankly, is it working?
Yeah. Suzanne, this is a pet project of mine. And then I was very fortunate to Jim Seifert, who was the president over at Lockwood and just a tremendous pioneer in our business, just a also great human being.
Yeah.
We're talking, and I said, hey, Jim, I've got this idea. And he said, oh, I'm working on something kind of similar to that. I like your idea. Let's bring them together and build a program. And we did. And it really happened over the course of, we had lunch in Delaware, we had lunch in Westchester, Pennsylvania, we had lunch here in the office, and we got started on doing this. The Institute is simple. We go to college campuses, We provide a curriculum of digital online classes, basically teaches students what types of jobs are available in our industry, how to prepare for those jobs, kind of how the basics of how the industry works, question to be prepared for it in your interview. And we just find that preparation, just, when a kid comes in, a student comes in for an interview, they are just so better prepared and able to engage and able to answer questions at a different level than someone says, hey, I want a job. No, they actually know what the job is all about and where it may take them from a career standpoint. We've also worked to promote the massive goodness, the massive benefit that our industry provides to our world and our society. What we do as an industry is tremendously important. It serves a public service to help improve the quality of lives of tens of millions of American families. We can do more, we can do better, but in order to do more and better, we need this next generation to join us, and the next generation has to be more diverse. So in addition to focused on bringing new individuals to the industry, we've been very focused on who that includes. That includes more women and it includes more minorities. And so we've focused quite a bit on the kind of composite of students that are utilizing the program, with a focus on growing women and minority presence in our industry. And it's been very successful. Something that just one of the I don't know, feel good, or if you can do it, why wouldn't you do it? And we're in a position to do it and put our efforts behind it.
Well, on behalf of the industry, I've been following it for a while. Thank you for doing it. It's needed, and it's actually something that is proving to be successful and setting up the next generation for understanding, to your point, what our industry can offer, that it's not, the Wolf of Wall Street portrayed, like some of the way it's portrayed in movies. So I'm really glad that you guys are doing it. And I hope that those listening out there look into it, because it's a really important resource that I think more people should know about. Yep. So I can't believe it, but we are almost out of time. And because this has been fascinating and I love talking to you. And I wanted to ask this question. Mm-hmm. If you weren't doing what you're doing now, i.e. you're the CEO of Envestnet, in case anybody doesn't know that, what would you be? What career would you have pursued? Was there another backup plan that was calling you? So I don't know if I know the answer to this. So I'd love to hear a little bit about what maybe you would have done.
All right, Suzanne, and I don't speak about this quite a bit, but I did not start off in the business world. I started off I was a creative and wanted to write a book. And ultimately that took me into book publishing, because I had to make some sort of income at some point. And, I was really focused on, my goal at that point was to become an English professor at some New England university, and I would become somebody that encouraged students to be creative, to express their creativity through story, to learn about the American story, to learn about the importance of literature. And it's a different way to understand history and human perspective. And to me, I thought, what a great career it would be is if I made my way to become the doctor of English in some English department someplace, and live that life. That did not turn out to be the case.
Well, that is, well, first of all, I love that creative element, and I'm not surprised. And that synergy, no wonder we became friends with the whole publishing and writing aspect of that. That's wonderful. Well, maybe one day you'll publish a book. Is that still like maybe on your bucket list?
We'll see. I've got one, The Essential Advisor. It's not the book I intended to write, but it's a great book. I think it's an important book. Yep.
Yes. Oh yeah. It's a great book, actually. That came out a few years ago, I believe.
That's correct. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So that, believe it or not, wasn't your big reveal. So now, as we get to the end of the podcast, what makes this podcast unique, I think, in part, is that I am going to be asking each guest to reveal at the end of the episode something that they've never revealed before publicly, or maybe a few people know, but the industry at large doesn't. And so now, Bill Krager, for the inaugural episode of the Big Reveal podcast series, what is your big reveal?
Okay, Suzanne, this is why it's must listen, must watch content here.
Good, I can't wait.
It really is. So, it's kind of related to the last thing I told you about. When I graduated college, I had a dad who was super kind of professional, business-minded. I had a mom who was a teacher. And I felt this amazing conflict. And I was bold enough to say, you know what, I'm not going to, kind of like follow the beaten path. I'm going to try to do something. And everyone thought I was nuts. So I was going to write this book. I was going to write the great American novel. And I spent over 2 years kind of bouncing around people's couches with no money, working, in a bookshop here or there, but really kind of stringing it along for a number of years to try to write the book. And it was almost written and nearly complete. Had a lot of interest in the book, but then, real life kind of overwhelmed, and the idea that I had to return back to convention became kind of the thing that took me from that, and I was close. So years later, when I started InvestNet, I think the blank page and that experience helped me so extraordinarily in the perseverance, grit, to not be intimidated by the blank canvas, to dive in and understand that every day it had to be written. I look back on, how the heck was I a person that could get through all that? And it came down to the experience I had years earlier when I tried to write that book. I definitely was not financially motivated, never have been. And I was literally living on, I think it was less than $100 a month. I was kind of stringing it along on back then.
That's, I love that. And maybe, the great American novel is still in you somewhere. But I think that's a great analogy between looking to write and fill the canvas and fill the sheet of paper, those sheets of paper that can be very intimidating, right? And then taking that same creative energy and turning it into an actual new business venture, into the business side. So that is wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, because I would have never thought that. When you look at CEOs in the financial services sector or the technology sector, they almost certainly started out, business school, and they have a very certain pattern that they filled. And so to know that you really started out more on the writing side and the creative side, I think gives a lot of people inspiration out there. So thank you for sharing that. And again, thank you so much for being my first guest on this series. Thank you for your leadership in our industry. But most importantly, thank you for being a wonderful supporter and friend. And I hope everyone out there has enjoyed listening to Bill's insights regarding business, of course, but also to get to know Bill a little bit more as a person. Thank you for listening. Subscribe at investnet.com/thebigreveal.